Nice to be back, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, where are you from?
This episode of TCG Cast is sponsored by AlchemistRefuge.shop, your one-stop website for TCG singles, sealed product, supplies, and more. You can help support TCG Cast as well as a local business by shopping at Alchemist Refuge. And make sure to use the code TCGCast at checkout for 5% off of everything you purchase from AlchemistRefuge.shop.
Hello, Aladdin. Nice to have you on the show. Can we call you Al or maybe just Din? Or how about Laddie? Sounds like here, boy. Come on, Laddie.
Life is your restaurant. Life is your restaurant. Life is your restaurant. Life is your...
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to TCG Cast, the happiest podcast on earth. We are here today to talk about Star Wars Unlimited Set 2, which is coming out really, really soon. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm here with my Sith cohort. Greg, how are you doing?
We are doing fantastic. We're here with another episode on Star Wars Unlimited.
Yes, and since the Sith deal in absolutes, we are absolutely going to be interviewing Xander, who works for Fantasy Flight Games, who may or may not be producing a game known as Star Wars Unlimited. How are you doing today, Xander?
I'm doing very well. I'm so excited to be here, chatting about Shadows of the Galaxy. This is one of the first times I've gotten to chat now that a lot of the cards have been revealed. So it should be super fun to, dive in and see what you all are thinking so far.
Oh, this is going to be a blast. So before we get on in here, why don't you tell the listeners who you are and a little bit about what you do with Fantasy Flight Games?
Sounds great. Yeah, so I'm Xander Tabler. If you are, a fan of Star Wars Unlimited who keeps up with a lot of our socials and live streams, I am the host for our live streams. I'm also our community manager, so I do a lot of our work directly with the community, going to events, engaging with people online, and just working with the wonderful people who make content around the game and enjoy chatting about Star Wars Unlimited as a whole.
Awesome. Well, we're going to jump right into it. And our first question for you is, what have you been playing recently? Are you doing Star Wars Unlimited? Are you playing board games? Are you reading books? What's been on your game table as of late recently?
Yeah, big card game player. So, running through rotations of things, but I've discovered a couple of trick-taking games recently that I'd gotten as gifts and read the rules on, and finally got to sit down and play some of them, and really have enjoyed them immensely. Because I, usually as a card game player, I specifically trading card game player, I stick to a lot of those, building new decks, crafting, all that type of stuff. But it's been fun to sit down and just try out something. I'm a big euchre fan as well, and so to do a twist on that has been really cool to experiment with and try something new for a little bit.
Oh, okay. So when you're playing trick-taking games, do you see any kind of similarities between that and, trading card games? Because even though they're using cards as a medium, they may not overlap, or they may actually have some, skills or strategies that you can apply from one to the other.
Yeah. I would say it's very loosely, I can translate some of those skills between the two. But I really enjoy one that I'm playing now, which is, I think it's called Wizard, and you have to, instead of, it's about winning the most tricks and doing all that, it's more about knowing how many you can win and playing your opponents as well as playing yourself, and knowing okay, this is what was dealt to me, what can I possibly do with what I've got, and you get points based on that instead of just taking the tricks, and so I think that one is pretty translatable around card games. It's okay, knowing where you are at in this circle, especially Twin Suns for Star Wars Unlimited, is okay, who's the beatdown, who am I worried about, what can I do this round to set myself up for the most success possible, and it's being able to get or evaluate your situation and values right there, and I think that's pretty universal between a lot of card games.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned the trick-taking games too, where, you can call me crazy if you want, but recently I've been getting a little bit into Mahjong, the Chinese tile collecting game, where you try to get sets and get points and all that thing. And I was thinking just what if trading card game design takes a lesson from Mahjong? Because that game, of course there's quite a bit of aspects of luck to it, but you're counting tiles and you need to make sure which tiles have already been used, or based on what your opponent has done, which tiles you think they're collecting. And I've seen some parallels for sure, but maybe one day we'll finally see a trading card game that kind of cracks the case on the Mahjong formula. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, that's just a parallel that I drew to trying to see to kind of get a cross genre comparison going, right?
Yeah, I love it. Mahjong's great.
Yeah, Mahjong is a really, really fun game. If anyone's heard about it but never tried it, you should definitely give it a look. All right, next question coming up, a very tricky one. What is your favorite aspect coming out of set 2? So you can, make this determination based on whatever parameters you want, but we'd love to know, based on the entire card pool, with all the new stuff coming available, what is your favorite color? What's your favorite aspect to play?
I think I have two different answers between, my typical play style. I very much lean into a lot of vigilance, a good amount of cunning, things like that. A lot of my decks feature one or both of those aspects overall. But I think for set 2 specifically, my favorite aspect, or aspect pairing even, I can get, into the nitty gritty here. I think aggression villainy is so fun and interesting. Because you have a lot of bounty hunters and the mechanics around like the new bounty stuff, but you've got people like Jango Fett and Chrysanthemum, and you've got Dengar as a 1-drop. Like there's a lot of really fun bounty hunting to do in the set, and I think it's just super it's great and it's aggressive, but it also makes you play around this thing that is brand new for this set.
Oh, okay. Super cool.
Number 3, coming from set 1 and transitioning into our next set, Shards of the Galaxy, what do you think is probably the most significant difference that players that are used to playing the Spark of Rebellion format will kind of immediately notice? Like, oh, this seems like a slightly different Star Wars Unlimited than I was used to playing back then.
I think there's 2 major things. I think we talk about both of them a good amount, but the first one that's been mentioned a lot is that there's a difference in the power levels of the cards. I wouldn't say that it's difference in like the overall level, but it's in how you can evaluate it easily. I think it's set 1, there's a lot of things that you can look at and go, yes, big numbers or big flashy ability. It's obviously going to be good, great. But I think in set 2, there's a lot of stuff that's a little more nuanced. There's a little more to dive into and really play test around and find what some of that real powerful stuff is. So I think that's something people will notice right away, is that when they look at set 2 cards, they may not immediately go, that's a huge number, that's exactly where I want to be, or hey, that's the craziest ability I've ever seen. But there's a lot of really cool stuff going on between cards, and with double the amount of cards that we had from like doubling the total of the card pool, people will have a lot of fun experiments to dive into and building both of those together. And then I think from my end, the number one thing I think people will notice immediately is flexibility. If we have the new keyword smuggling, which keeps lets you play your cards from your resources with an additional cost, usually like a couple more resources, or you need different aspects, things like that. And I think people will notice that it's just much more flexible game in set 2, and less rigid of, okay, I have put that thing away, my resources, I will never get it back, it's over, it's gone. And a little more flexibility of like, okay, I can have a game plan going in one direction and be setting up my resources as my backup options of, okay, if something happens and they spark a rebellion and get rid of this card from hand that was like the key to this game plan, all of a sudden I can reach for one from my resources, or I can go in a whole different direction based on what I've been storing down there if I've been playing my cards right.
Yeah, I think that's like the big thing that stood out to me immediately when, you guys really knocked it out of the park with both the keywords from a gameplay perspective and also from a flavor perspective too, because, of course there's the bounties where you get to score, little rewards for completing an objective, and of course they can happen on both your own cards as kind of a downside, or on your opponent cards that you can then this card is one I want to get rid of anyway, and let me try to put a target on it so I can score the bounty. But yeah, I think that's really just the first thing that stood out in my mind. I love the smuggle mechanic, and of course I think from a design perspective it's really interesting because it allows you to it allows the designers to hone in on incentivizing a specific color pair without outright, negating it having to be a specific color pair, if that makes sense. Sure. And we'll talk about, some of my favorite cards too later in this podcast as well. But, I just love the idea that you can play it in aspect as a regular card, and then it has the smuggle ability, and then you can kind of choose to opt in or opt out of that ability as kind of like a touch and go. And so like really, forgive me being cheesy here, but there's really something to the unlimited possibilities slogan that you guys are going for. So I absolutely love it.
I definitely think set 2 really leans into that, and like you said, it's so nice to be able to have that flexibility, move things around in different ways, and maybe it's not always the most optimal to play out of the resources, but it's always there when you need it, which is nice to just have that fallback.
Right, and to my understanding, when you smuggle something, you actually get a resource back, right? It's not like you just go negative on resources by doing so, right?
Yeah, and you can exhaust that card as a resource first to pay for itself, and so really you're not losing out, because when you take the one off the top of your deck and replace it comes in exhausted, and so you really aren't losing out, because you usually are trying to pay for it with itself, which is nice.
Yeah, for sure. And even more, like adding on to this even further, I love that resources are face down. You can look at them, but to the opponent, as far as I'm aware, it's more of a surprise aspect. Mm-hmm. And we've seen other trading card games in the past that have had this card as resource type of system before, but a lot of times the card you're going to be playing is face up, where both players could look at it. It's a viewable area. And so really when it comes to the smuggle mechanic, it works thematically and gameplay, where it's kind of like a kind of a trick, or like a trap that you activate, and you go, hey, look, this card's been sitting there the whole time and you didn't even know it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
so it kind of creates this
there.
It kind of creates those moments where you feel like the actual antagonist,
Oh yeah, it's so nice. I played a Han Solo deck on stream, where I even said my whole game plan going into this stream is that I'm going to have 0 cards in hand with set 1 Han Solo leader. And it doesn't matter, because all of my cards are my resources, so I still have a million options. So I'm running out of cards. I'm constantly, ramping myself using his ability. So it didn't matter if I ran out of cards. I've got options. I've got plays to make, which is super fun. And then they can't guess, and there's no really way to eliminate them from there unless they do like a scanning office or something. So it's like they're sitting there staring at the resources, going, what game are you playing? What's going on? And sometimes it works out where I don't even have a smuggle card down there, but just the threat that I might is enough to make it interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I love I think it's really cool, and you kind of mentioned this as well, where it's like in Star Wars Unlimited, it feels like you never run out of options to play, and that's kind of a feel bad or a negative player experience in many other card games, where like once you run out of cards, it's like, all right, well, I'll just have the opponent play, and I guess I'll die, right? But in Star Wars Unlimited, I actually had a pretty lengthy discussion during the community event with Jeremy Zwern regarding the draw 2 system within this game. Mm-hmm. And, we talked about how, other games, when they have draw 1, resource 1, you're really just going at net 0, assuming you want to, up your resources. And, his big question was, why not just design the game to allow you to draw 2? What's stopping you from doing that? And and to add on to that, right, we now have the smuggle idea, and so not only are you drawing 2 every single turn, but you also have cards that are hiding there that could be used as like a secondary hand almost. It's like a card that's in your hand but not, and you have to pay a little bit more for it, but hey, if it's just the piece that you need given the game state, then it might just be worth it to pull off. But yeah, anyway, thanks for sharing things that you like about the differences between set 2 and set 1. Here's the big question, either very difficult or very easy question, depending on how sold you are on this idea. But what's your favorite leader in set 2?
Oh, man. That's tough. I have a couple.
No, exactly. That's what I thought. It may be a hard question or a very easy one. I think I'm sitting in it's very hard camp as well there, so I'm with you, Xander.
Yeah, I think there's so many fun ones that I'm like, I will absolutely be building a deck around them. But figuring out which one I'm like, I need to, figure out completely, and this will be my one I take to events and things like that, is much harder. I think Lando Calrissian is someone. I love Lando's character. He's wonderful, one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. So obviously immediately drawn there. And I like the idea of, playing a card using smuggle and not really having that drawback of having to pay more resources. Unfortunately, you lose a resource going in the next round, but hey, you can make up for that. You can play from behind for a second. And eventually when you're tapped out on resources, it really doesn't hurt that bad. Just to have to add one the next round. You don't need that many cards from hand because you're smuggling, so it doesn't matter. So he's definitely somebody I'm interested in. Cad Bane is the the more I talk to game designer Ryan Serrano, like we've talked about the Cad Bane and how cool he is, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Cad Bane is pretty sweet. And then I think I've talked about this on Twitter a little bit, is I think Kira is one of the leaders that I will be building day one. I just think she's really interesting. Grit is such a fun keyword. And I think, in set 1, we've talked about it before as well, that Grit was originally in set 2, and it was brought forward into set 1 as well. And so I think Grit really shines with Kira in set 2.
Yeah, I'm glad that sticking in theme with my interactions with him, Ryan Serrano simply only has the best opinions all the time. So.
I have to agree. He definitely does.
Sugi, do you think you want to go and just talk about some of your favorite leaders? I think I definitely have a choice as well.
Yeah, I definitely, whenever you get back to the office, please give a huge shout out from us to your design team, because y'all have brought in some of the most beloved characters from Star Wars, who are also some of the most well-known side characters, like Hondo Ohnaka and Cad Bane and Fennec Shand. It's like, these are known characters, but they're not like driving the scene when they're on screen. And yet they're in set 2, and I'm just so excited. But yeah, Hondo, every time I read his card, I can hear it in his voice, and it's great. So his ability, when you play a card using Smuggle, you can give experience token to a unit. That's pretty spicy. Jabba the Hutt. This is the leader I've wanted since day one, and he does not disappoint. 212. Oh my gosh, he is big on defense. Like that HP level is pretty disgusting, and he can just put bounties on things. Like, it's not like he totally does that in the movies or anything. Wow. Okay, good job, y'all. I'm pretty stoked to build Jabba day one. Like Jabba bounty control, just dumb things. So good.
Yeah.
What about you, Greg?
I talked about this a little bit during our card reveal as well, but I love the Upgrade Matters theme just because it reminds me of, I don't know, there's something that speaks to the JRPG experience, which is my favorite genre of video game, which is just, you have a bunch of dudes, you buff them up, they're really buff now, they fight, and so, just having a Upgrade Matters theme finally. And of course, we had like a taste of it within set 1. We had some upgrades, we had some... I think the 2-cost one that got buffs with each. I forget the name. The name is escaping me at the moment, but it felt like there was like a sub theme or like just like a teaser that like, hey guys, this is design space that we have. It exists. Here's proof that it exists. It may not be the most built out right now, but trust me, like we know it's here. It's coming, right? And it feels like this is kind of the the payoff of that, right? So we have. Each friendly upgrade unit gets +1/+0, so really good to help sweep some things with on the field. And then at 6 resources or more, you have a 4/7. That's a leader. And then each friendly upgrade unit gets +1/+0 and gain. So on the leader side, it actually gets an extra ability, which I think is pretty spicy. Sometimes leaders just kind of go for the same idea on front and back. Sometimes they add a little bit more. This one adds a little bit more. When defeated, you may return an upgrade that was attached to this unit for its owner's hand. So not only do you get to buff up your dudes, but I was a business major in college, and so I just love the idea of value, being able to, get your expenses back almost, trying to break even a little bit more.
Yeah,
and so,
Garth Saxon.
Yeah,
so
the definition of a break even is having a card that you use as an upgrade to bring it back, and as if nothing happened, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Gotta love it.
Yeah, and it's super fun to use him. Put an upgrade on another unit, and then immediately have that unit run into something. And then you get that upgrade back, and then you can put it on another unit if you have the resources. And you're like, this is just great.
Yeah. Re-equip.
And,
yeah.
I always have an affinity for the types of cards that we get to reveal as well too. Like our cards kind of had an Upgrade Matter sub theme to it as well. So I feel like I owe it to the universe and of course to you guys as well for being gracious to give us the cards to be like, all right, let's make this thing work now. Gotta love it.
Yeah, you all revealed Super Commando Squad, right?
That's
yes.
right.
I love that card. I think it's so fun that it's like, oh yeah, while this thing is upgraded, it gains this, great keyword Sentinel. Now everybody has to run into it. Oh, also it's going to come with a shielded that not only prevents that damage, but also, triggers and makes sure that Sentinel is on. So it's like, yes, one of your guys has to take 4 damage, or you have to figure out a way to ping this off, because otherwise he's a problem for you.
It is a 1-card combo.
Yeah, it's just great.
All right, so I do have a question. You were also gracious enough to let us reveal Evidence of the Crime. It is a blue event or a vigilance event, and it states, take control of an upgrade that costs 3 or less and attach it to an eligible unit of your choice. So I wanted to confirm with you, Xander, that you can take any upgrade, including bounties, and attach it to a eligible unit on your side or the opponent's side. So, for example, if someone puts a bounty on one of your units, you can use Evidence of a Crime to re-equip it to something on the opponent's side and use it against them, which would be pretty gnarly, actually.
Yes, I believe that you can. Yeah, it's a really nice play is when you run into one of those like Bosk or other bounty hunter decks and be like, yes, this great thing you were setting up is no longer on my guy, and now it is actually something that's going to be a horrible problem for you to have to deal with on your side.
Okay.
It's also a fun one if you played a bounty and all of a sudden you realize that you can't capture it on the other side. Like they put 1,000,000 shields on something and you're not playing vigilance, and you're like, oh gosh, what do? I need this bounty so I can trigger something else. All right, yeah, unfortunately it's going to cost me a little bit, but you could throw it over somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay. I love how this card works, and I'm really excited because we've seen some really very gross upgrades like Frozen and Carbonite, which is a 3 cost that you attach to a non-leader unit. They can't ready, and then it exhausts the attached unit when you play it. So they're just trapped forever.
So good. That is, okay. I love Frozen and Carbonite. What a fun card. It costs 1 more than No Good to Me Dead. Yeah. And you're like, yes, you are no longer a problem at all. And so it's a nice play.
Absolutely disgusting. Okay, really quick, I would love to hear what your first 2 leaders for Twin Suns will be once you get your hands on set 2 cards. What are you thinking? What are you brewing up over there?
Yeah, so I've been brewing. I am so excited to have so many more leaders and be able to do, like, the combinations are just limitless, it feels like. And I that's my favorite part about each set is like, okay, what's the crazy deck I could put together so when I'm playing at the dinner table with everybody, this is like the wackiest possibility. And so my first one here, I am, a known lover of double aspect. Most of my Twin Suns decks lean into that double aspect, despite, having access to a third. And so I'm excited for Kira Krennic.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think Kira Krennic is fun. You've got access to some wonderful double blues then, or double vigilance. So you've got like Midnight Repairs to heal 8 total damage from any number of units. That's just good value when bring Kira out and you do damage all across the board. So that feels great. And then I think it's fun with First Light. If you have Kira, do all that damage to everybody all across the board. Everyone's feeling, half as good as they did right before this. Then you bring out, and then Krennic's there as well, so everybody gets that +1/+0. So it's like, all right, great, my sides feel good. And then you throw the First Light down, and you're like, oh, that all of them have grit now. And it's just the worst possible opportunity for your opponent to have there. It's just like, yes, everything is damaged, and all of their things have, potentially twice as much power.
That is awful. Oh, and First Light has grit. It's a 4/7. Get out of it. That's gross.
Yeah, 4/7.
Going full circle, feeling when you actually are the antagonist at the table. I feel like you cracked the code, Xander.
Oh yeah. I love being the antagonist, especially for like. Yeah. Playing with friends, especially Twin Suns, is like, it's always figuring out who is the threat. And unfortunately for Joe O'Neill, I will say, game designer Joe O'Neill, that he is the threat most of the time because he's playing Chirrut. But I feel like I'm going to take that crown with this Krennic Kira deck, hopefully in set 2. Unfortunately, I probably won't get the combo off because everyone's going to target me down. But I'm going to feel great when it eventually does happen.
Hey,
True.
never say never. You snuck out that Millennium Falcon that one game that won pretty decisively. That was cool.
That was it's a great game. I've gotten a very good track record in Twin Suns games. Either planning well and just doing the right math and getting there, or lucking myself into a win, like I did last time we played Twin Suns on stream.
Oh man, that sounds fun. Okay, so really quick question for all the Thrawn fans, including myself out there. What are you going to do to improve your Thrawn deck using new cards from the set?
Oh yeah, Thrawn, amazing. Just what more do you want? So Thrawn's getting rebuilt in set 2. I took him apart to build a couple other decks at one point in this last season. So now I'm ready. Bringing him back, he might be my guy for events and bringing around to different places and store showdown, or not store showdowns, but weekly play. And I think he's just a fun character to play as. I'm sure he's not super fun to play against in the way that I play him, but I have a great time.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. I'm like, it's fun, and it makes you play a deck in a style that is not super common in the format. Which is, I'm just going to play removal until I can play the biggest possible things. Focusing on the Avengers and stuff like that, or Snoke, are really big hitters for the deck. But I do think Rivals Fall and Fell the Dragon are huge for this. I feel like Fell the Dragon really fits in a specific gap that was in some of the decks, or some of the decks before, whereas Takedown just doesn't reach it. Vanquish is great, but for 5, it maybe just doesn't add up right. And so Fell the Dragon is pretty nice against those who are either upgrading a million times, which is like, hey, fine, that's great, keep upgrading, and then I'll eventually be able to hit it. Or people that are playing like a control deck like Palpatine, or anybody who plays like the Devastator and Avenger anyway. So I'm excited for those. I've got some other ideas brewing. I don't know exactly where I want to go, but I know that Dr. Pershing's going to be in that deck either way, because who doesn't want to just draw a card? Deal a damage, draw a card, great.
I'm
really
excited to see those cards hit the table, because any form of straight removal is good. And Fell the Dragon and Rivals Fall, it's just gasoline.
Oh, yeah. It gets those moving. And I think Thrawn, you could also kind of go in an underworld way and do some of the like Forlom, Zuckuss shenanigans, which, hey, man, that might be better than what I'm cooking up currently. And so it might be something I have to try out eventually, because those two together are just so fun. Ambush somebody in, make sure they live, and then all of a sudden Zuckuss comes down the very next turn and also ambushes in, and he's also massive now, and you're like, oh, okay, great, things are going poorly for me.
Yeah, those are some pretty spicy combos. I'm really excited to see what people come up with, but I feel like all the archetypes get really good. You've got some great cards for control, great cards for removal, great cards for aggro. Mid-range is looking spicy, and now with all of the bounties and upgrades, you could probably do a lot of really good, powerful things. And that's fun. It's fun to see a card game that has multiple avenues for players to indulge, not just you must play this to win or you lose every game at locals. Sorry, like that kind of format's just not interesting.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It happens, things can get a little stale that way. So I think there's a lot of really fun support for, some different archetypes that are now appearing with bounties and smuggling and things like that. But I think there's also some really fun support for some of those decks from set 1 that people really loved. I know like Cassian Andor immediately comes to mind of like support for previously existing stuff with like, now you have another great rebel for a Leia deck. One who potentially comes in ready, a 3/5 that comes in ready, which, hey, that's just great. That's the Millennium Falcon, but coming out of your resources. So what more do you want there?
Any thoughts, Greg?
No, I think I want to revisit an old discussion that I'm not even sure that Xander has any reason to remember this, but
I'm ready.
It was all right, imagine this, right? We were at the community event, right?
Yeah.
We were in the hotel lobby. It was like the aftermath, right? Where everyone was just kind of sitting, chilling, playing Star Wars Unlimited, right? Mm-hmm. I had put together a Twin Suns deck from my one booster box that I got. It was a Jin Chewbacca Twin Suns deck. Yeah. And I asked Xander to give me a dankness score out of 10.
Oh, I forgot about
I do remember this. I do. I believe I gave it a 7.
So at first you gave it a 6, right? And I was asking for pointers, and you said put in the Luke Skywalker Legendary when you get a copy, and then also the copy of the lightsaber from the starter deck. And then I said, okay, if I put those 2 cards in, would you give it a 7? And then you paused for a second. You looked at me in the eyes and said, I'll give it a 7. And so all of this is mainly for me to say, we have new cards coming soon. I kind of felt limited not by my deck building prowess, but more by the limited card pool. I'm willing to blame it on why I got a 7. So I'm just really excited. I'm really excited for the new set, because then I think maybe, just maybe, with this set or maybe the next set coming out in Q4, that maybe, just maybe, Xander Tabler can give me at least an 8, right? Like I think 10 might be a little bit far off, right? But I feel like an 8 is in my grasp. So stay tuned to TCG Cast. We'll I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point, Xander. You're always welcome. And one of these days we're gonna have a Twin Suns deck list review, and you're gonna deck doctor my Twin Suns deck, and hopefully I'll get my super coveted 8 out of 10 from Xander Tabler. So.
I'm so honored, and I am extremely ready. We can grind some Twin Suns games. Let's get some webcams going and get into it. But shoot for the stars as well, though. You can go for that 10. I'm sure you got it.
What is the qualifications for a dank level 10? Like, is that it's a bad deck, or is it a good deck that's awful?
I was never quite clear on that. I was about to say that. So you asked that during our show about the community event, right? Yeah. I paused for a second, and I'm just like, I don't think we were ever quite clear on whether or not a higher dankness score meant that the deck was cooler or better or whatever. Because keep in mind, it was 4 a.m. We were all getting delirious and super sleep deprived. So none of us, including Xander, caught him slipping, knew what was really going on, right? So we were a bit confused. I
was going with a 10 was the most dank, but also the coolest. So I was going 10 was that's the top tier deck. That's the deck you're showing up with.
But is dank a good thing? Do you want your deck to be dank?
I think you want your deck to be dank, and I also, but I would say that. Too. I mean, not literally. I don't think you want it to be moldy or anything like that. I feel like that decreases the night.
I put these sleeves in a humidifier for 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. But I do think I was going from that, and I also was based on the way that you were asking it, because I remember this vividly, that I thought, it doesn't have to be the deck that's going to win Twin Suns every time, but it's got to be the deck that does something cool and is interesting, and when you sit down with people, they go, wow, what's going on over here, and they want to hear about it. And so I think you've got that in you.
Okay,
thank you. I think I was kind of chosen that Chewbacca Jin just felt like such an unlikely pair that was also it felt half synergistic, not completely oh my gosh, they feed into each other so well we've seen in some of the other color pairs, but okay, he's cooking, he's doing stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So exactly, that's you brought it up very eloquently, more eloquent than I could put it. Dankness is not necessarily what's gonna win. It's about what's just sick. You look at the two leaders they bring to a game of Twin Sun, you're just holy moly, that's just dank. That's just dank AF. Yeah.
It's a vibes-based approach to deck building, which I fully endorse. You should always go based on the vibes of the deck that you're bringing to sit down across from your opponent, and is this going to be sweet? And if it is, then you're on the right track.
All right, so Jabba's definitely going to be high dank levels then, based on that parameter.
Yeah. Sugi, we need to start up a Twin Suns deck review series called Dank or Dork.
Oh Lord! God. But here's the thing: we got to pitch it to Xander. He's the final judge. It's like a cooking show, and Xander is
he's the Gordon Ramsay of Star Wars. Yeah.
He's like, what is this? Decks. This is a stupid deck. What are you, a bad deck builder?
What are you cooking over here? Yeah, I gotta figure this out.
This is dog water. Put it back. Oh man. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Okay, well, I am so excited for this new set to release, and this is the opportune moment, Xander. Why don't you tell all of our listeners what are the dates where they can get their hands on Shadows of the Galaxy, because it's coming so soon.
Yeah, start reaching out to your LGS now. Make sure you're getting in for those pre-releases and getting set up for weekly play so you can be set up for success to get some of those cool promos we're going to talk about soon. But you can expect Shadows of the Galaxy to be hitting store shelves on July 12th. and that is the full release globally. On July 5th, we also have pre-release weekend where you can go to your local game stores and pick up a pre-release box, sit down, play some Sealed with friends, and make new friends as well, and get to enjoy, some of the cool promo cards that come in there, as well as your first taste of what this new meta could look like.
Oh, man. So exciting. All right, last question, and then we're jumping back into the ship to do some Sith training. What is your favorite card? The one you really want to pull, like super excited the moment it just is in your hands.
Oh man, my favorite card. The card that I want to see the most. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the legendaries. Oh, I know who it is. I used to be, I said very far before the first set dropped, I said I was a cunning player, and I thought that in my soul, and I felt that. And I have come around to the fact that I am not a cunning player. I am a vigilance player. And so I also happen to always play villainous. I play heroes very rarely, and it has to really intrigue me in order for me to do it. And so I want to pull Supreme Leader Snoke more than any other card in this set. I am so excited. What more do you want? I mean, 8-drop, 6/6 unit, which is like fine stats, but then each enemy non-leader unit gets -2/-2. That's taking out, if you're playing a Sabine deck that's going wide, it takes out many different units over there. And also everything's just hitting you for far less now, which feels great.
Yes, I am so glad you said Supreme Leader Snoke, because that is also the card I really want. Just the art looks great. He's very menacing. The ability is horrid, and it's just so good. Like, this is really excellent thematic card design. He just looks so creepy too, just sitting there menacingly, like, doing his evil deeds in the shadows.
Absolutely. He's a card that you're like, oh, I'm so excited to pull it in a pack. I'm so excited to see it in my hand. But the minute you see it played across the table from you, it's a devastating moment. You're like, oh no, I don't know how I feel about this card anymore.
He's just sitting there menacingly.
I think I have a clear pick for my favorite card of this set, if I may.
Tell.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about my Twin Suns brew until the cows come home. I need that 10 at some point. So previously, I think you guys threw a bit of a curveball, because previously, of course, I'm Jin Chewbacca, right? So it's going to be a vigilance hero and also cunning, but I have the choice of my base, right? So my base has been command that gave me access to like Akbar, cool pings and things like that, big home one ship towards the end of the game. But we have a new rare in this set called Chewbacca Pikesbane.
Oh, yeah.
8-cost vigilance hero. And it has 4/10 in stats, so 4 power, 10 defense, however it's called in this game. It has grit. When played, you may defeat a unit with 5 or less remaining HP, and then smuggle, and this is the reason why I think I may have to pivot to a different color combination. Maybe it's more dank this way, who knows. But you can smuggle him for 9 costs, and then, of course, your aspect, you need to be on hero and aggression. And, of course, it's worth noting that my heroes don't have aggression on their own, so I'd have to get that aspect through the base. And so, who knows? I'll have to see what my brew's going to be, but I think if I have to pivot for the sake of smuggly, huge grit Chewbacca that kills something on play, I think I might have to do it.
No, I don't like this.
He's really cool. I'm so glad you said Chewbacca, because I feel like he is not getting the attention he deserves here before the set comes out, because he is just, what more do you want? Like, Count Dooku's so nice to come in and defeat something with 4 or less remaining HP. Chewbacca does 1 more, and then his stats are a 4/10 with grit. It's like, grit. Okay, great, yeah, everything's great.
And then, of course, the problem with high-costed cards in most formats or card games is like, I don't have the bandwidth for this. I can't really cast it or play it right now. It's a dead card in hand if you want to keep it around. But like Smuggle eliminates that completely, right? It's like if you see it early, resource it. If you see it late, play it.
Resource it. Resource it.
Yeah, if you see it late, resource it. Then smuggle it out.
If you see it early, resource. If you see it late, resource it. Don't play it. Never play it.
Yeah,
you don't want
I think it kind of adds a new paradigm to how you
use it as a coaster.
Evaluate higher costed cards, right? Yeah, because like you can put it in resource, put your Mountain Dew Baja Blast, not sponsored, on the card that you're about to smuggle as like an intimidation tactic, right? And then you Baja Blast him out in the smuggle, and then there you go. He's out. Cat's out of the bag, although I guess it's Wookiees out of the bag in this case.
Oh, boy.
But,
Oh, no. Yeah. I don't want that played against me. It's scary. He's a big unit with good stats.
Yeah. But what about you, Sugi? Do you have an all-time favorite of this set? I feel like we were going around table
It's
with it now.
100% Snoke. Like, I think Snoke is probably the coolest card in the set. Secretly, I actually like the card named Sugi because that's my name. And I'm surprised you didn't give us this card to reveal Xander.
I almost did, and then I was wondering if it would be too on the nose, and so I leaned away from it.
Okay.
I was so disappointed. You know, when eventually Sugi gets a reprint, or is like a new Sugi comes out in the future, I will keep this exact conversation in mind.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because when it came out, all my friends were like, "Hey, your card came out." I'm like, "What?" Oh yeah, I forgot. She's from Clone Wars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a great card. For people who don't know, it's a 4-cost double vigilance 4/6 ground unit. It's got while enemy units are upgraded, this unit gains Sentinel, and you could smuggle it in for 6 resources and 1 vigilance instead of double. So you can either pay 6 via, 1 vigilance and then paying for the extra tax without aspect. You could smuggle it in, or if you're running double blue, you can pay 4. But it's just fun to see a card with your name on it. It's like, when does that happen? Not very frequently. Also, her stats are actually really good. 4/6 for 4, if you're in double vigilance, is good. If she has Sentinel, it's also good. Being able to smuggle her in at a moment's notice once an opponent puts a upgrade on, you're like, cool, boom, here's a Sentinel. I think she's really, really very useful. Maybe not the greatest stat line ever, but you can, again, play her as a resource if you need to. You could smuggle her in later. You can play her. You can hard cast her if you need to. Just lots of options. Smuggle opens up so many doors and makes set 2 fascinating because now you have cards in hand, deck, and in your resource pile. So you really don't know what to expect, which keeps games really interesting and creates a lot of player agency because there's a lot of things you have to play around. It's not just, okay, threats are in their hand or on the field, not scared. Now it's, well, maybe it's in their resource pile now, and I don't have a way to get there because all of the cards in the game are like, hey, you can force an opponent to discard a card, or you can defeat a unit on the field. You don't have a lot of interaction with the resource pile right now outside of very specific cards. So hilariously, smuggle is probably going to be one of the safest ways to put a card in a place that you have access to that your opponent really doesn't.
For sure, yeah. And then you have options like tech if you're playing heroism and just, make everything have smuggle, which feels so great too.
Good. So
save those key pieces for later.
Yeah, I'm probably just putting him in. I was going to say I'm going to tech him into all of my decks. I don't even care about his out of aspect penalty. I mean, can you imagine just having a card that says your resource pile is a second hand? Good luck, have fun. Okay. Now we're cooking with gas. Now this is pod racing, as they would say.
This is pod racing. Also, a very small aside here. I just love how you guys completed the 3-card cycle of 4-cost removal in mono vigilance, 5-cost removal in mono vigilance, and now there's 6-cost removal in mono vigilance.
Love it.
And all of them target like slightly more things than the previous one did. So now they just went full circle with it. 6-cost rivals fall, defeat a unit. Period.
Yeah.
That's the text, right? I love it.
Just
so
slightly less letters than the 8-drop Super Laser Blast, where it says defeat all units. So it's like, we can get rid of some of that text. Drop the cost too, and there's a new card. Yeah,
it's great.
I just love it. It's center of the whole text box. You can see all the white space. How menacing that one sentence is to any card game player ever. No, my card.
Yeah, no tricks or confusing text. You're just doing the thing.
Hey, that thing, it's dead. Yeetus deletus, just it's gone.
Yeetus deletus.
Yeah, let it rip. All right, well, Xander, thank you so much for your time. We absolutely are gonna have you come on. We'll revisit the dankness score of Greg's deck building capacity, and we'll have to schedule something where we can play some webcam Twin Suns with some hilarious decks. Oh man, this is just so exciting. But thank you so much.
You guys
for your
already know what
time.
I'm going to be playing, right?
Chewbacca with grit. Oh Lord, I hate grit. It is like my worst nightmare. Control
yeah.
player decks are squishy, and your things get bigger as I attack them. I'm not liking that. As I play the game, I punish myself. I'm not into that. I'm just letting you know. I want to win, not suffer.
That's fair. But thank you both for having me. This was super fun. I cannot wait to play some Twin Suns once set 2 arrives.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, go talk to your local game stores about Star Wars Unlimited. There are lots of cool things coming up soon. New set, new pre-release, new promos, new characters, leaders, etc. So we will see everyone very soon. Thank you for joining us. And as always, may the Force be with you. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of TCG Cast. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media at TCG Cast on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And if you're looking to pick up a brand new set of trading card game singles or accessories, go check out our sponsor, alchemistrefuge.shop. This is where we pick up all of our supplies, and we highly recommend you should too. Thanks for joining us on this week's episode. We'll see everybody next time. And remember, play games and have fun.